Yeah.
Okay, well, it's 3 o'clock. I think we're going to get started. So, Alpakawit, I'll hand things over to you to welcome us. Thanks.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome, participants, to this press conference that is very important. I want to welcome everybody to the territory of the Musqueam, the Tsleil-Waututh, and the Squamish nations as we do this very important work going forward in what we do for the people who are right now under siege by opiates and the overdoses that are happening. I welcome you here to this meeting, to this territory, and also with open arms to go ahead and help the people that need the help the most. I pray for our very honest interactions today, and that all of this news that is being put forward, while it may be traumatizing to some, it also gives us a chance to keep us all inclusive, and a prayer going up to all of the people who need the work that is happening and that are going to be affected positively by what the work that DULF and all of these other organizations are doing. So with my sincerest hope and wishes, grandmothers and grandfathers, ancestors, those who have gone before and those who are yet to come, please listen to our prayers for a good press conference and meeting here, and that everybody listens with open hearts and that they leave with knowledge they can work to help the people of the downtown Eastside. OCM.
Thank you, Alpakawit. So we're here today to talk about the recent release of the coroner's data for January of 2022, which, we're very saddened to hear that another 207 folks have passed away due to drug toxicity. And the DULF, the Drug User Liberation Front, we believe that the root cause of this, all these deaths we're seeing, is the regime of prohibition and, violence that's being done against our communities by an oppressive regime that needs to be dismantled. That's origin is colonial, it's outdated, and it's killing people. And the regulatory regime around drugs is non-existent, and we need to intervene and start testing and getting folks doses of drugs where they understand precisely what they're taking and the dose they're administering to themselves. What the DULF and the coalition of peers, of whom we have Beely and Sage with us today, have done, yesterday at their board meeting, we handed out 3.5 grams of cocaine, 3.5 grams of crystal meth, and 3.5 grams of heroin, and the Drug User Liberation Front continues to hand out substances that we have tested with a predictable content that have led to 0 overdoses. And I think this is the crux of the issue, is that when people know precisely what they are taking, they will not die. And the 207 people who died in January died needlessly because of the failure of an outdated regime that needs to be reevaluated, and where people need to be given options. Because even if you are someone who believes in recovery, and the Drug User Liberation Front believes in the full continuum of care, even if you want someone to go into abstinence-based recovery, you cannot recover someone who has died. People need to be able to be safe if they choose to use drugs. This is not a matter of whether or not people should use drugs. It's a matter of fact that when they choose to use them, they die. So without further ado, I'm going to hand things over to Beely from the Coalition of Peers to speak to this issue, to this horrendous loss of life, this horrendous loss of 207 more people, because institutions that be have not engaged with DULF's model. So thank you.
Hi, thanks, Eris. My name is Beely Lee, and I am the Vice President of the Coalition of Peers Dismantling the Drug War. Here we are again at another press conference with another horrifying set of numbers. Let us be clear about one thing. These are not just numbers. Each number represents a person who was loved and cared about and who is no longer here. Using drugs should not be a death sentence. We are losing people one by one all over this province, and especially in the community that I live, the downtown Eastside. It is the coalition's opinion that current drug policy and the war on drugs and the lack of action on changing the current policy is the cause of these deaths. Excuse me. Drug user groups have demonstrated multiple times that when a safe, tested supply is handed out, no deaths occur. It is also our view that the government has had 6 full years to make the changes necessary to stop these very preventable deaths. The coalition is calling on Health Canada to immediately approve the Section 56 exemption application made by DULF and Vandu. We also wish for the government to implement the urgent recommendations made in the BC Coroner's Service Death Review Panel report that was just released 2 days ago. As this report indicates, a new approach is desperately needed. And what it has also shown that the COVID pandemic has shown us that when the government wants to, it can deal with a public health emergency in a timely manner. Why aren't they dealing with this one? Lastly, the coalition wishes to acknowledge those that we have lost and those that are left behind. We will continue to use our voices and collaborate with other drug users groups until, and the community also, until we are no longer dealing with preventable deaths caused by drug poisoning. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Beely. Next, we're going to move on to a statement from Sage Jacobson, who's also with the Coalition of Peers Dismantling the Drug War.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Beely. Thank you, Eris. On the coroner's report, the last two, I know 3 of the people that should be on that report that should have never been lost, you know, to drugs that were so potent that killed them. They're very well seasoned veterans of using drugs, and yet where are they? They've died because the government has no way of helping us. It doesn't seem to want to help us. We're people. That's all we are. We're not bad people. We're good people. We just have a different thing in our brains. But say the 3 people that I've lost are very well thought about, and that's all I can think of some days is how we lost them to stupid overdose, stupid drugs, stupid heroin that they thought was getting heroin when in fact it was fentanyl. And that's what, you know, how many more people do we gotta let die before they see that people are dying for, you know, for a horrible reason. And I'm gonna have to leave it at that because I'm gonna get a little frustrated if I keep sharing, and it's hard trying to hold the tears back. Thank you.
Thank you, Sage. And next, we're going to move to Kevin Yank from the Vancouver Area Network of Drug Users. Kevin.
Hi, everybody.
We're muted. Oh, there you go.
Hi, everybody. Kevin Yank, Vice President of Vandu. Yeah, the coroner report, and it's just it's appalling. The numbers keep going up and up, and like I know, like I'm a supervisor at our OPS here at Vandu, and we're doing our part. I know we're doing our part, and all the other OPSs, like nobody has passed away or died in these rooms, right? And so we know we're doing our part. It's to the government to do their part. But it looks like it's us that have to take care of that. It's people that are dying are in the ones that are using alone. And so we have to somehow reach out and connect with those. But it as well, safe supply, and together like the Vandu and DULF, we've been doing some brainstorming and seeing what a capacity club would look like. And so far it's coming together, and it's showing, it's proving that safe supply that DULF is introducing is the correct one. So that's so we'll take that step for the government in making sure, like trying to lower these numbers and stop the deaths completely. Yeah, so like, we just keep on keeping on, and you know, like I'm just glad to be here, and yeah, like and part of this, and see a better change, a better future for both people, and I don't know, yeah, like when you Vandu, like our people that work here and the board members, our feet are on the ground. So when your feet are on the ground, you know a lot of people, and a lot of the people I know or knew aren't with us anymore, and it's just pretty hard. It's pretty, but besides that, like yeah, we'll just keep fighting, and we'll get someplace. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Kevin. So I think that the takeaway message here is that 207 more people needlessly died to a toxic, unregulated drug supply. We need a regulation of drugs. We need a regulated supply of drugs for all people who use drugs, immediately scaled up as per the coroner's messaging, 2 days ago. And what we have right now is a very patchwork system of harm reduction interventions that, as Kevin and others have brought up, have saved many lives, but that is not a successful intervention for the staggering nature of this crisis. And what we need, government to come work with people who use drugs, whose voices have been silenced, who have not been engaged with, who have been kept away from the table. So I'm going to give a short presentation on our model hypocrite. You are back. Do you want to jump in, or are you okay? Oh, here, I gotta. Welcome to the future. Sorry.
Hi, thank you for allowing me to speak. I just want to really reiterate the fact that we need to work together, especially the government needs to open their eyes, both federal, provincial, and also other organizations, and our city councillors need to realize the very grave need and concern that we have with the deaths that are happening. As you know, repetition works. 207 people needlessly passed away due to overdose when we could have prevented that. And if we work together in a good way, we can make sure that nobody is dying, and also work on harm reduction. The goal is not to keep people addicted, but to give them a place where they can come to have a choice in a right, good way to make the transition from drug user and to become, less addicted. And the only way we can do that is if they have a safe supply, so that they're not consistently worried about where they're going to get their next fix, where they're going to grab, if it's safe or if it's not. Because when you're in that survival mode, when you're in addiction, that consumes your life. And if they have a safe supply, we can not only prevent deaths, but really, people will be able to more accurately access the needs that they have and the social programs that are out there and established, because they're going to be safe and they're going to feel like they can be healthier if we do this. So we really need to work hard on working together and opening our minds. These are not drug users, these are not addicts, these are junkies, these are mothers and fathers, grandmothers, brothers and cousins. This is our family and this is our community. So with great a depth of love and a concern for everybody on the downtown east side and everybody in the lower mainland who suffers through this addiction process, let's make their lives easier. Thank you.
I'm on mute again. Okay. So I'm going to give folks a brief presentation on how DULF's model works, and then we'll open everything back up to a Q&A with everyone who's here, if that works for everyone. Yeah.
Can you mute me again?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
There you go. Okay. So hopefully everyone can see this. Are we good? Can one of the speakers nod if you can see the presentation? Yeah, great. Okay, so where are we at? We are on our way to have another awful year of death of drug toxicity deaths. And it's very disconcerting to see that the first month of 2022, we saw 207 folks die due to drug toxicity. So DULF, as an institution, we believe that the issue is a lack of regulation in the drug market, and that we need a safe supply intervention. And what is our position on safe supply? We believe that safe supply is where there are substances of known potency and content that are provided in a way to people who use drugs accessibly and in a way that accurately conveys the risk of taking those substances. And, you know, our argument is basically, one, that the volatile nature of the illegal drug supply is what is killing people. Two, if drug users have access to non-toxic drugs, they won't die. Three, if we dismantle barriers to accessing safe drugs, you know, people will be less likely to turn to risky street drugs. And in the same vein, prohibition doesn't work. And that our model is currently saving lives. No one has overdosed from the drugs we've ever given out. No one. Zero overdoses, either fatal or non-fatal. So why are there so many folks you know, overdosing right now? Well, first of all, the overarching policy of prohibition is driving the rate of overdoses. As you have a prohibitionist regime, you know, stronger drugs are easier to smuggle, so the drugs will get stronger. Because they're illicitly manufactured and there's no regulation, they become more toxic. Organized crime gets stronger. You know, enforcement plays a role in this, a very heavy role. And I think, you know, the medical system itself, everyone wants to talk about drugs like they're a medical issue. They're not a medical issue. Drugs are a social issue. And we believe that the medicalization, forcing people to go to a doctor to get a clean drug supply, causes tremendous amounts of barriers. You don't have to go to a doctor to go to a liquor store. You can just go to a liquor store, and alcohol is the most dangerous drug of all. All we are trying to do is protect consumers. We are not a criminal organization. We are not trying to profit. All we are saying is that if people know what they are putting into their bodies, they're less likely to kill themselves. In fact, the risk of killing yourself, if you know precisely how you are dosing yourself with drugs, is vastly lower. So this is where Adults Compassion Club intersects as a solution. So we believe that by integrating ourselves immediately into existing lines of substance distribution and increasing the power of consumers, we can protect people. Ideally, we want to be able to purchase drugs from a legal supplier. We do not want to be breaking the law. You know, we are left with no other option but to resort to the illicit market, you know, and the dark web is the safest way for us to use to do that. Unfortunately, we don't have access to pharmaceutically manufactured heroin. I would love to be giving people pure, clean heroin directly from manufacturers. Same with cocaine or methamphetamine. I don't want my community to be harmed. And that is the crux of this issue. How does it work? How does it work? We can't wait. We can't wait for the government to intervene. So we have to come up with this solution ourselves. And that's the question. What does that solution look like? And I think in many ways, we're uniquely situated to intervene. And that comes from our relationship, our willingness to work with all stakeholders. We want to see our community safe. We want to listen to people. We want to come alongside people so that they stop dying. Once people stop dying, then we can start addressing other issues in our community. But so long as one person a day dies in the downtown East Side, so long as I have to respond to one overdose a week, there is an emergency that is not being dealt with, that we are not being resourced to deal with. And this is where the DULF Fulfillment Center and Compassion Club model comes in. You can think about this as a two-part system, and really, you know, DULF, the institution, doesn't need to do this. Any, you know, institutional pairing can do this. The purpose of the Fulfillment Center is to procure and test substances so that consumers know what they're getting, right? Test them, package them, and then ensure that there's no contamination. The Compassion Club ensures that the people receiving the drugs are people that need the drugs, and follow up with them and connect them with the community and do the community building Kevin was talking about. So you are providing people with a safe supply of drugs that doesn't kill them, and simultaneously bringing them into community, connecting them, allowing them access to resources and the things that, you know, fulfill their creative drives and their needs as a human being. I think in many ways we've been abandoned, and this, you know, is a community-driven harm reduction intervention that can be successful at vastly reducing the rate of death. So the first part of our model, market navigation. Currently, we use the dark web as our market. Again, we would rather use licit providers. We have no interest in breaking the law. The dark web provides us with safety. You know, doing in-person transactions for substances is quite dangerous, so we prefer to avoid doing that. And it also allows us to put our money into escrow if necessary to get our money back should the drugs we receive not be what we asked for, which, as you can imagine, doing in person is not the funnest ordeal, asking for your money back from the person who you've received the drugs from. So we use the dark web to order our drugs. We use the anonymous cryptocurrency Monero to do so. We do not know who is sending us our drugs. We do not know who is on the other end of this transaction. Everything is anonymous. And once we receive the drugs, we do quality control. So currently we're using amino acid dipsticks, FTIR spectrometry, mass spectrometry, and you know, we also have other types of confirmatory testing that are a bit more intensive that I don't want to get into currently. But the point is, we want to increase consumer understanding of precisely what they're taking. You know, and I think any drug testing technology used alone, you know, has limitations. For example, with FTIR testing, anything under 5%, if there's carfentanil or fentanyl in your drugs, you're not going to know. You're also not going to know using this machine the difference between carfentanil and fentanyl. You're only going to know that you're getting a positive fentanyl dipstick. Similar molecules such as 6-monoacetylmorphine and heroin do not detect very well on FTIR machines. And there's a subjectivity to the way analysis is done. So what DULF does is we amalgamate a ton of different testing methodologies so that we know as close as possible what is in the drugs we're providing to people. You know, and I think that's what's important is, again, if you know what drug you're taking, you will not die when you take it. Storage, got to keep the drugs somewhere safe. I mean, I think this is self-evident. So the fulfillment center gets the drugs, tests the drugs, stores the drugs, labels the drugs with clear and accurate packaging that tells you precisely what's in them. Also, and you know, there's no warning like this on alcohol, but we do have warnings that are like, don't drive when you're on heroin, keep away from your kids and your animals. You know, this could be an addictive substance. And I think we are not trying to sell drugs to children or have Joe the Camel. We are just trying to have very low level, you know, non-enticing packaging for folks who use drugs. You know, that's not stigmatizing. That's not like, you know, this something horrible. I think we need to bring drugs out of this stigmatized thing into a consumer marketplace model through regulation. And, you know, if folks have chaotic patterns of substance use, we need to deal with those, much like with alcohol. But drugs themselves aren't the problem. The other half of this equation, compassion clubs. These are the drug user groups. The drug user groups, you know, already know who is using drugs. They already know who it would be appropriate to participate in this. They are the folks that we work alongside to ensure the substances are getting to the folks most at risk, which are our community members. Again, this isn't something where we are going and standing outside a school or something, you know, dangerous and with like a booth being like, hey, it's the DULF, you know, drug market. This is a very regulated thing. This is working alongside community members. This is working alongside folks that are already using drugs, and folks who are longtime drug users who we are losing, you know, folks that I would consider my elders and important folks in the community. We are losing them, you know, like water through a sieve. It's awful. And then the final stage obviously is distribution. So the Compassion Club distributes it to its membership. You know, obviously giving away drugs for free is not a sustainable model. So there would have to be an at cost, you know, kind of sales model. And this again is why we look to illicit providers, because they would be able to undercut the illicit market, you know, and entice people who are using drugs to not turn to street drugs that are highly volatile and dangerous. But currently, you know, for these giveaways that we've been doing, we've been crowdsourcing the money from middle-class donors who don't want to see folks continue dying, you know, and thanks to anyone that's giving us money so we can keep giving out clean, safe, and tested drugs. And the last thing the Compassion Club does is measure outcomes and connect people. It asks questions to people, it engages people, it brings them back, it builds community. The Compassion Club's purpose is to make people feel welcome somewhere so that they can have better outcomes in their life, in all aspects of their life, whether it's in their health or in their authentic relationship to themselves. So the last thing I want to say is if you want to support us, you can give us donations, write us a letter of support, sign our petition, or write or reach out to your MP or MPP, you know, reach out to the Federal Minister of Health. And ask them to approve our exemption. So if anyone has any questions, I'm gonna unmute everyone and folks can field your question. I'll ask them and you can type them into the chat, I hope. Oh wait, maybe I've disabled that. Yeah, no, you should be able to.
Good question.
I mean, if no one has any questions, we can just close. I don't know if someone like wants to close the meeting. Maybe if they do. Oh, okay. What?
I would ask anybody to speak up quickly because I know there are some questions. If anybody who's part of, you know, the press might have a question or two. Otherwise, I can do the closing if you want.
Oh, Jean has a question here. You can also, if you turn on your video, I can unmute. Jean, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wondered if you think it would be of any use if we tried to get the city council to endorse the recent coroner's report.
Yes. I mean, it would help. I'm just like, what would really help is if we had a safe supply. Like, I feel like there's a lot of talking is the unfortunate reality. Like, you know, a report after report comes out that kind of, you know, says the same thing. It's like, we need safe supply, everyone's gonna die. I don't know if someone else wants to jump in here.
Yeah, I understand.
Well, I'm like, can we have some, we need action on the, ooh, you just disappeared. Okay. We need some action on the ground, I think. And I think we will do that. Good, you know, good solid actions on the ground, keeping
Yes,
people safe.
Okay, great, thanks.
No worries, Jane. Anyone else want to ask some questions? I see it said it won't let me unmute. Okay, here. Should I just let everyone can unmute yourselves, I suppose. Let's see where this goes, huh?
Hey, it's Moira from the Tyee. Thanks for holding this.
Yeah.
I just had a quick question, Eris, maybe you can answer. Do you have any indication of when Ottawa will get back to you about your Section 56 exemption or when you might expect to hear that?
Well, so the thing is, we have a SUOP a substance use and addictions program grant, and I have a feeling we'll hear back about that before the Section 56. And the SUOP depends, like if they approve the SUOP, they would have to approve the Section 56 exemption. But we haven't heard back. Health Canada is just not talking to us, unfortunately. You know, we have met with the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions this week for the first time, which was good. But you know, that's a new relationship. In Health Canada, you know, we submitted this document August 31st, the exemption request, and haven't heard anything, you know, except a few clarifying questions, unfortunately.
Thank you for the update.
I wish it was more of an, I wish I was like, yeah, they're working with us. We're going to get this going and do it in a good way, you know. I'm like, I wish it was that positive. And unfortunately, the thing is, the coroner's report, all it points to is like, you need to do this. You need a community-based harm reduction oriented safe supply program. And right now we don't, you know, have that at all.
It's Jean again. I got another question, if that's okay. Is there any way you could just work directly with Fair Price Pharma to do at least the heroin part of it?
I don't think we've had both. Kevin, if you want to jump in. Oh, I'm just like, we haven't had very much luck working with them, unfortunately. It feels like the goalposts keep moving. And the one thing I can say about the illicit market, you know, using the dark web, is we have the substances to give to people to keep them safe. I'm like, when we work with institutions without, and especially without the Section 56 exemption, you know, it's illegal for us to have these substances. So I'm like, nobody who's working in the illicit realm wants to work with us, because if they sell them to us, like, it's illegal for us to possess them without that exemption, right? So, you know, we have to do something, and I'm like, that means using the illicit market, unfortunately, right now. But and again, I want to reiterate this over and over. I'm like, we do not want to be doing that, but we just have no other choice. I'm like, you've left us with no choice. People, one person a day is dying in our community. It's horrible, you know. Any other questions, comments?
Hey there, I have a question.
Okay.
Hi, I'm a frontline worker, and I work with homeless population as well in Surrey. And in my experience, and I've asked several people this recently, and the information I got back was that heroin is largely unpopular relative to fentanyl. And I noticed that the fentanyl is almost totally, or I mean, you clearly specified in the Facebook posting that I saw that that there was no fentanyl that had been tested, such that there is no fentanyl. I'm just wondering what the thinking and the approach and the sort of the theory around that is. Thanks.
I think anyone that uses drugs should have access to that drug in a predictable content, in a labeled and regulated and predictable way. I think it's a deregulation that kills people, whether it's fentanyl or not. So I think, you know, fentanyl is not a very popular flavor in the eyes of the general public. So it's difficult for us from the perspective of public engagement to, you know, upsell fentanyl to people. But I do think folks that use fentanyl need to be included in this conversation. I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in on this, but all drug users deserve to feel safe. You know, it's not just people that use heroin. And I do think that like street, you know, a lot of folks do prefer fentanyl to heroin. And I'm like, let people use the drugs they would like to use. And anyone else want to say something on that topic? I'm talking a lot, I'm sorry.
I think too, the question of heroin versus fentanyl also depends on accessibility. So if we consider the fact that fentanyl has kind of taken over the illicit market in the last 7 or so years, and heroin in that time span has become less and less and less accessible, almost to a point where it's impossible to get, like, on a street level market. At what point does that become somebody's choice or DOC versus like what they need to take to keep themselves well? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that does make sense. Thanks.
Anybody else? That's kind of fun.
I apologize, but I gotta leave here, Eris.
That's no worries at all, Sage. I think we'll probably close the press conference in a second. Buckwood, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, well, do you want to close us out?
Grandmothers and grandfathers, ancestors, I ask everybody here, hold in your minds and your hearts the work that we're doing and acknowledge the importance of it. In closing, I would like to say on behalf of the Musqueam territories where I am from the Tsleil-Waututh and the Squamish people, that as an Indigenous person with many family members and friends who are living on the downtown east side and that I have lost to overdose, we are grateful for this work that DULF and all of these other organizations are doing. And in closing, I would just ask that when we're done, please, however you pray or whatever you do, send some love and light out to those 207 families that are now missing somebody to the overdose deaths, and just, really hold in your hearts and your minds positivity in moving forward so that we can prevent deaths and that we can, help people in a good way. My sincerest and deepest hopest wish is that we get on this right away and that people take it upon themselves to plan actions and get a hold of each other so that we can make the downtown east side a safer place for people who use drugs or alcohol as a way of, dealing with their trauma, and that we can do that in a good way and a not judgmental way and in a safe way. OCM.
Okay, well, thanks everyone for coming, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.